Hey guys, I'm Steph and I do videos about my experience living with bipolar disorder. I am also a musician, so I have a whole bunch of different videos on my channel. Would love it if you checked out my playlists. So I got a question from Knighted Honor, I hope I got that right, about having kids and being bipolar. There was another YouTuber that was talking about their challenges with birth control. And this was before Roe versus Wade was overturned. And I live in California, so I was blown away by what she was saying. She basically could not get anyone to tie her tubes. She absolutely knew she didn't want to have kids, and the doctors kept telling her, well, you might decide later that you want kids. We don't want to do it or whatever. Now that Roe versus Wade has been overturned, it's going to be a lot more so difficult for people to have access to birth control. But this video is about whether or not people who have bipolar disorder should have kids. It's not my place or anyone else's place to tell you whether you should have kids, whether you're a man or a woman. It's yours and your partner's decision. But I can talk about the risks. So and me personally, I don't have any kids. It was never a big dream of mine, but I did have friends who had kids, and it was or who dreamed of having kids their whole life. That's all they ever wanted. There was a time when I thought about having a kid. I always wanted to foster. I never wanted to birth my own kids. But I had gone to a foster information session prior to my last psychotic episode, before I was properly diagnosed. And after my episode, I realized there was no way I could ever have children. My situation is different from most people. I went undiagnosed until I was 40 years old. I had been misdiagnosed over and over again throughout my life leading up to that point. In fact, I was on medication for an entire year that could have sent me into a severe psychotic episode. Those of us with bipolar disorder, we are so fortunate that we get the extra challenge of having to decide whether we should ethically have children or not, birth our own children, or even adopt or foster. Everything you see on TV shows the bipolar parent in a very, very negative light, and impacting the child's life in a really, really negative way. There are trolls that I've seen online who have been really hurtful to people who have bipolar disorder. And maybe they had a parent who had bipolar disorder and they had a really bad experience. It's still not right to do that. But if you have bipolar disorder and your partner does not have bipolar disorder, and you two decide to have a child together of your own, there is a 10% chance that your child will develop bipolar disorder. If you and your partner have bipolar disorder, there's a 50% chance that your child will have bipolar disorder. When there's twins involved, the statistics go even up, or more than one kid. If you have one kid with bipolar disorder and you have another kid, they're more likely to have bipolar disorder. So there's all these statistics that I've read about in peer-reviewed articles, and you can do your own research on Google. So you do have to consider that. But there are a lot of things that you have to consider. You have to consider your own well-being. You have to consider your support system, because if you don't have, the reason why I'm able to function the way that I am is because my husband is there by my side. He's with me. He helps me when, my mood seems off or whatever, or if I'm not sleeping enough. We talk about these things. It's an open line of communication. I don't get defensive. Sometimes I get pissed off if he says, did you take your medication? Because it's typically not in a manner that I don't know. But sometimes it's irritating, but most of the time not. But You need that support system. You need to be aware that if you do decide to become pregnant and you're bipolar, your medication may need to be completely changed. You may need to be tapered off of it. You can never just go completely off your medication. Don't ever do that. If you're a woman and you're the one having the kid, when your risk of postpartum is much, much, much higher. And you can go into psychosis when you're in postpartum. So these are really damaging and scary things for a parent and a child, but it doesn't mean that you can't have a kid. If you have bipolar disorder, and there are people out there who already have children who didn't know that they were bipolar. There are plenty of parents out there that are just horrible. The thing about being bipolar is that we work on ourselves a lot more because we have no choice. We have to study things like mindfulness. We have to speak to someone in therapy because we have no choice, because it's difficult for us to live in this world. So I feel like you could even be a better parent than a parent who, stuffs all their issues and they manifest onto their children. So it's really a personal decision. As far as access to birth control and healthcare, I don't even know. I don't even know how women in parts of the U.S. who want to have their tubes tied, or go on the pill or whatever. I don't even know how much more challenging it's going to be for them. But the thing is mental illness is really, really, really scary. And bipolar disorder is one of the rarest mental illnesses out there, and it's one of the scariest ones, especially if you're someone who goes into psychosis, if you're someone who has major instances of depression. I've known a few people whose parents were bipolar, and 2 of them committed suicide. So of course that's going to affect the kid in a really scary, negative way. There is a flip side of it though. We are a lot stronger, and children of bipolar parents are a lot stronger. There's so many messed up things, but when you, the more you go through, the more resilient you are. But yeah, so I'm not going to say whether or not somebody should have kids or not. There are definitely more challenges. You have to have a support system. You have to be wary of things like your medication. I wouldn't look to the media, and I would just kind of like brush off anything that you see about a horrible parent who is bipolar, because the thing is that nowadays we have way more medication, way more treatments. Someone like myself, even though I'm stable and on medication, I would probably have a higher instance of going psychotic again, because it's the same with medication. Even if you're on medication and you're functioning, there's a 10% chance you could go into full-blown mania again. But for me, I feel like that would be higher than somebody else because I've had so many episodes and I went so long untreated. But yeah, we have way more resources. There's way more help out there. You can also set up financially, you can set up financial situations like, I'm talking to my husband about it, but financial conservatorships and things like that. There are things checks that you can put in place. So I hope this has helped anyone considering or worried or whatever. There are plenty of really crappy people out there deciding to have kids. So keep that in mind. Okay. Thanks, guys. Have a good day. Bye.